Hey everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. Revenge on Evil Landlord. When I was in university, I'd heard stories about horrible landlords of student housing but hadn't experienced it myself. Until third year when it felt like we got 3 years worth of crappy landlords all in one go. It began when I heard noises in the wall behind my bed at night. I brushed it off for a while until I realized that it was an animal in the wall. I told the landlords the next day and they immediately played dumb, acting as if I was stupid in front of my housemates for suggesting that something could fit inside of a wall. That was the first alarm bell. Why immediately try to embarrass me into dropping it? After explaining that I know what a cavity wall is, she asked if we'd seen anything in the kitchen. Oddly specific, we didn't think about it until later. From then on, her husband dealt with us. We weren't aware that he was our landlord too. A little time passes, still nothing done about the noise in my wall. Not that it was a surprise. I'd worked out by then that it was probably something like a mouse and that it could run through the terrace of the houses. As long as it didn't chew its way through my wall or die in there, I put the whole thing on the back burner. Until we were all sat in the sitting room and heard a thud in the kitchen. Then squeaking. There was a giant rat in our kitchen. The rat disappeared into a hole in the completely crumbling kitchen wall, and the landlord claimed that we made it up and that they'd never had a rodent problem. I contacted the previous tenants through Facebooking names I found on letters for them that had been posted to us by mistake. The property had had a rat problem for the last 3 years before we moved in at least. I set a rat trap and caught one, took photos and sent them to the landlord to tell him to sort the problem out. He told us that because there was a line in our contract about the landlord not paying for pest control, the contract specified wasp nests, etc., we didn't even think about rats when we signed it, that we'd have to pay the hundreds of pounds to fix it. He'd knowingly written that into our contract so he wouldn't have to pay out, instead of fixing the kitchen wall and the exterior wall where the rats were getting in. To cut the rest of the setting, the scene part of the story short, we called the council, who sent a pest control team. While on their visit, one of the men took my housemate to one side and told her that our landlord is evil and he is known for getting nasty. They told him that it wasn't our fault that there were rats, it was his, and he screamed in my face until he was bright red about how I was a terrible person and was trying to take him down for no reason. One of my housemates had to leave because she was scared. I wasn't. We were in a room full of men who were backing us up, making himself look worse for screaming in my face like that. I'm female and was 22 at the time, about half his size. He tried to sue us for slander. It isn't slander if it's true, so swing and a miss. Now for the revenge. It was written into our contracts that we had to be notified 24 hours in advance if anyone needed access to the house, which included house viewings. I began my mission. Stop any other students from getting stuck in this heck hole. The house was being shown by agents, so it made it fairly easy. I left the rat traps in prominent places, casually explaining why we needed them if asked, and I felt if I was being too subtle, making a fake show of, "Oh gosh, please ignore the rat traps. The landlord said he'd fix the kitchen wall where they get in, but hasn't gotten around to it, so we have to catch them." I was honest about the mold problem in the bathroom. When I found out they were planning on increasing the rent by 100 pounds a month, I made a point of saying something like, "Well, it's just about worth the rent I was paying." I made sure to say his name so they wouldn't get away with using his wife's name as a front while his reputation for aggression stayed hidden. The agents never said anything to me directly, and because we had to be notified, I could always make sure I was home when there was a viewing. My housemates fully supported my revenge, but I was the woman of action in the house. When I'm sure I'm in the right, I will do what's necessary to make things right. That was until they tried to turn up unannounced one day, not even knocking, just unlocked our front door and walked in. Luckily, I was in the house and kicked them out for not informing us, and told them that they were in breach of our contract. If the crappy landlord could use it to beat us with, two can play at that game. No new tenants had signed for the house by the time we were free of that heck hole. It's been 2 years now though, so I have no idea what happened to the rat house. What do you even really do in this situation? When the landlord is refusing to help you out with things like this and trying to throw you under the bus and intimidate you, what would you have done? Let me know in the comment section down below. Silence me for 4 years? Enjoy losing all of your friends? So, some backstory. My freshman year of high school, I was assaulted by a peer, and so was another girl. I kept it to myself because we had a lot of mutual friends and I didn't want them to be uncomfortable or feel like they had to choose a side. I also felt like I was responsible and it made me feel really guilty. I also suffered a lot of psychological repercussions. An eating disorder, harming, I developed severe anxiety and depression. Finally, it peaked and I forced myself to tell my English teacher. The police were called. I was interviewed. Already, I could tell the detective was not taking me seriously. He also blatantly misquoted me in the statement and used words like misunderstanding and he went in for a kiss, even though I made it very clear I struggled and tried to push him away, and he had me pinned to the wall with his hand around my throat. He confessed after 10 minutes of being interviewed by the police. The charges got dropped by the prosecutor because he felt the case would never go to trial. He was a star student and was very well respected. After this, he was banned from speaking at school-sanctioned events. I was still quiet because I'm not a rock-the-boat type person. Eventually, I found out he was planning on going to the same college I was going to. I wrote him a letter asking him to please reconsider. He had said he was very sorry earlier. I told him in the letter to put his money where his mouth is and prove it. He never replied. A few weeks later, I found out he's planning to speak at a baccalaureate event put on by a local interfaith community. I emailed the teacher in charge and told her what happened and politely asked her to not allow him to speak. She emailed back and essentially said, "That's terrible, I'm so sorry. We're still going to let him speak though. Feel better." I'm livid at this point. I've been dismissed, belittled, ignored, and unheard for years despite my efforts to get justice. He's still incredibly popular and everyone loves him. I decide I've done all I can. I tried to take care of the things on the down low, talk to him privately to come to an agreement, talk to the organizer to try to come to an agreement. They both ignored me just like the police did. So I decide I'm not going to be quiet anymore. I attend the baccalaureate event, and while he's giving his speech, ironically about treating others with respect, I hold up a sign that says, "Redacted has assaulted 2 women. Is this the face of the class of 2020? Stop giving assaulters and abusers a platform to speak. Stop silencing women." By the time the event is over, everyone is talking about it, and everyone is pissed at both him and the organizers for letting him speak. Many of the girls there are victims of assault themselves, and they are all furious that the organization knowingly let a predator speak. I feel incredible. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. The last thing he told me after assault was, "Don't tell anyone." And even after years had passed and I felt comfortable speaking about it to a select few, and the police knew, and all the teachers knew, he was still praised. And every time I heard someone talk about him fondly, I heard that little voice from deep inside me saying, "You're letting him win." Now that everyone knows and everyone hates him, I know that finally I can lay this matter to bed. I can finally let go. This was a very powerful story, and it's absolutely wonderful to hear that OP was able to get this revenge and basically out this guy for who he is and what he's done. Knock him off that pedestal that he's still somehow upon, despite what kind of person he is. It's literally sickening to hear how teachers, police, anybody she tried to talk to was silencing them or ignoring them outright. Was able to get the most satisfying petty revenge years later on a former coworker who lied and almost got me fired. So in 2017, I worked at this merchandise store. I got along with most of my coworkers, but I mostly kept to myself. I was saving to go to graduate school and had just gotten married. This place had the craziest trade shift rules. We had to sign the trade book in person, no calling in trades last minutes, and no signing for other people. Terminable offense. After about 6 months of working there, I had a major medical emergency. I found someone to take my shifts. No sick leave until working there a year, and literally went in before being driven to the hospital for an outpatient operation to sign the book. The person taking my shift, let's call him Adam, knew why I needed to take the shifts, 4 in total, and was totally awesome about it. I come back after the 4 days and the regional manager, super big boss, scary boss, came to find me shortly after my shift started. I was thinking it was to see how I was. Nope, they pulled me into the office to have a termination meeting. They asked me why did I even show up after no showing the last 3 days. I explained I had traded my shifts to Adam, we had signed the book. They fetched the book and saw where we had signed and dated, but then pointed to where the trade had been crossed out with another manager's initials next to it. That manager got called in and I found out that Adam had told his manager my operation had been canceled and I needed my shifts back. Without talking to me, he canceled Adam's ownership of the shifts and made me responsible again. Adam never reached out to me to tell me he couldn't cover them anymore. After being interrogated, because Adam had been working there a while even though he was a year or 2 younger than me, and forced to show proof of being in the hospital, which I'm fairly sure was against the law, they basically told me they believed Adam, but that I was being saved by a technicality that the book wasn't signed. Adam wasn't held responsible for having signed the book and yet not showing up for his shifts. Made me so mad. So mad. I never spoke to him again, other than to tell him he needed to go find some joy because he must be miserable to be able to do what he did, and continue to stick by his lie. Fast forward to 2019. I was almost done with grad school, not working at that store anymore, for a while, and every Thursday went with my friends to a local bar for some trivia. Now on occasion I had seen Adam come to this trivia, but we always ignored each other. The host of the trivia always, would ask if there was any birthdays and make it to where if you bought the birthday person a drink, it would count towards endgame trivia. Really nice when it was your birthday, all the free drinks. Here's where it gets good. One seemingly normal Thursday, I go to trivia with my group and I see Adam. Barf. He was wearing this stupid birthday sash and his whole table had those annoying blowers. Well, the normal host for trivia got sick and sent a replacement. For reference, I was sitting at the table closest to the new host's setup and Adam was about 3 to 4 tables away. She started the trivia and didn't ask about birthdays. After category 1, Adam's friend, probably girlfriend, walked up and asked if the host could do the birthday drinks. The host told her she didn't know about that, she had never done that before. The host then turned to me, an obvious regular for how I interacted with the waitress and bar owner, and asked me if that was something the normal host did. You bet your butt. I looked at her, shrugged my shoulders, and said, "No, we've never done anything like that before." I kept a straight face long enough for the trivia host to tell Adam's friend she didn't feel comfortable doing that. She didn't want people to buy points. And I finally broke when the friend told Adam the bad news. He got so mad. Legit think he teared up. I still think about that moment and get happy. Sometimes crappy things happen and crappy people get away with things and you tell yourself what goes around comes around. But it was really awesome to finally see the comes around for a change. Dude tried to get you fired and then stuck by his lies. So God forbid he gets to miss out on his free drinks at a birthday bar thing. I was the deserving recipient of a great petty revenge. This goes back decades. I'm an old fart to 1984 during a strike at a company I worked for. I was in management, so was working a late afternoon shift and my replacement came in around 8 or 9 in the evening. He no sooner shows up than he announces he hasn't had supper yet and wants me to fetch him a pizza. I should add that he was my manager as well. Having a great relationship with this guy, I knew I could pull a practical joke on him and get away with it, so I went and bought him a frozen pizza and delivered it back to him. Dropping it off, I told him he owed me $6.39. He told me he'd pay me later, saying nothing about his absolutely useless frozen pizza. A good 3 months later, he comes into my office and drops what sounds like a rock in a plastic bag on my desk. I opened the bag and what it was $6.39 in change frozen into a solid block of ice. I think that's fair. You got him a frozen pizza, he got you a frozen change. Revenge is a dish best served cold. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today, so what I want to know is which of these stories that I've read for you today was your personal favorite and why? Let me know which story and why in the comments section down below. And thank you all so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the Storytime channel and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Thank you all again so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.